Mary, 90th birthday celebration. You've been listening to historic figures that are buried right here in the cemetery, people of our community and their stories and their contributions. We have another one coming up, the last of the 5 we're honoring, and we'll repeat this program. So right now, a few people are exiting, and when they leave, we'll start with the plant speaker in the set, and then we'll take a pause after that, and give you an opportunity to look at some of the things up front. Here we go. I think we're about, we'll let these folks speak first. And we'll get going with the last. We'll be back to Father Lank here at 2:30. But right now, we're going to meet somebody else. So, Paula, how are you? 1 minute. Okay. Here we go.
Our next individual is Etzel. He was a bachelor that lived his entire life here in Cincinnati. His great-nephew, Miles Dodge, will be portraying Vince wearing Vince's hunting hat and flannel shirt.
Nasty outside. Love to be inside. That's a nice hat. It's nice and dry. Wanted to listen to a little bit of music before we got going. Love that song. We'll come back to that. Well, it's sure nice you all took the time to be with us here today and stop by. This is a bit out of the ordinary for me. I don't really like the spotlight, but I hear it's for a good reason, and so here I am. And I do think I have something important for you to hear, and it has something to do with that shrine just behind me, but we'll get to that in good time. My name is Vince Etzel, Vincent John Etzel to be specific. I was born on January 25th, 1920, to my papa Peter Etzel and mama Philomena Duman, where I grew up on Fern Ridge Road. I was number 5 of 8 kids. So there were a few of us, you could say, from Leonard, Louise, Tilly, my buddy Ted, Al, Phil, and Pete. There's plenty for us to do growing up on a farm, in the farmhouse, out in the fields. There's plenty of chores, but we also like to have fun. We like to go out hunting Saturday night. But the rule with Mama was, if you go hunting Saturday night, you have to be at the breakfast table Sunday morning for breakfast, of course, but also for Mass. So we listen to Mama. That's a good idea. We also like to go out in the evenings, coon hunting up by Mill Creek Prairie. Later in life, I did all sorts of different sports and recreation. I love skiing. I love bowling. I love shooting. I was a pretty good shot with a 22. I even competed. Bowling, I even brought my own bowling ball here. The lanes in heaven, I would say, are pretty nice. The shoes always fit and the lanes are always open. I ended up being pretty blessed, I'd say, with farming success and business success. One might attribute that to the fact that I was top of my class in 8th grade at Fern Ridge School, District 12. I will mention that I was one of 3 in my class, but we don't need to pay attention to that detail. I was still top of the class. I lived at 380 Church Street for 59 years. I first moved into the house in 1949, but before I lived there, my mama lived there, Philomena. In fact, she needed to move into town because the farmhouse needed to be some room for the kids to grow their own crops and to grow their own kids. Mama was okay with this on 2 conditions. 1, it needed to be near church, and 2, it needed to have a chicken coop. So the bare necessities, am I right? So 1, the house is on Church Street, so pretty darn close to church. It's right over there. It's the blue one with the American flag out front. So that box is checked. Number 2, it had a chicken coop. The unfortunate thing about the chicken coop is Mama was checking the chickens one morning and slipped and fell. I got hurt real bad, and complications attributed to that. She passed away, unfortunately. May she rest in peace. I ended up joining the U.S. Army. In the States, I served in the bitter cold of Alaska and the sweltering heat of Kentucky. I also served a tour in the European theater during World War II. It was in Alaska where I strengthened my habit of praying, and where I felt the Holy Spirit often, so much so that I felt the Holy Spirit call me to join the parachuters. which at the time was training in Kentucky. So off I went to Kentucky. Along the way, I was able to have the fortunate circumstance to stop by the farmhouse on Fern Ridge and say hi to the family, especially my papa, who I heard was not doing so well health-wise. And such a blessing to see him because I was able to see him right in person very, very shortly before he passed away. And in the 40s, you gotta remember, there's no social media, there's no TikTok, Snapchat, things like that. There was no cell phone. So just that opportunity to say goodbye to your father during that time was a great, great consolation. While in the military, I learned a lot. I learned very practical skills. I learned how to drive different sorts of heavy machinery, keeping things moving in those frozen temperatures up in Alaska. That experience was very transferable to the farm when I got home with the tractors and machinery I used back home. But also I learned about how to practice faith, the role of faith, and how that looks wherever you may be. For instance, in Germany, I kept guard on a machine gun mounted truck in the dead of night as planes flew low right above my head. Me not knowing if they were allies or enemies or if they were paratroopers of the enemy side dropping or even bombs. You hear a lot of things at night and you don't always know what they are. These were excellent times to pray, I'll tell you that. Even in these war times, I did have a chance to go to Mass. In these towns that we were in, oftentimes the only structures that were left standing were the churches. One thing that looked a little different going to Mass there was we had our weapons with us in the pews. Luckily, the people in the community understood why that was. While in a combat zone in Germany, I did have a vision. A very vivid vision, full of detail. I saw a creature, maybe a spirit, dressed in black. The landscape was very reminiscent of the area that we were in. It was very real. And to summarize, this dream was a warning for me and the soldiers in my platoon not to go down a certain road at a certain time. I was a little hesitant to share this with anybody because I didn't want them to think I was crazy, but long story short, this vision kept my platoon and I going down that road at a bad time to get ambushed. And so I'm very grateful for that vision that kept us from walking into that ambush. People who knew me would say I was a man of great faith. And frankly, I'm not sure, I'm not the one to say, but I figure when you experience things like this, the experiences in Europe, the chance to see my dad right before he passed, that time in war, it's really hard not to believe in the power of prayer and faith. And during those times when I was over there in Europe, I remember praying to God, if you would just let me return home safely, I promise I will praise you every day. It's the least I could do. And so I did. I was very grateful to return home, along with my brother Al and Pete, who also served in the Lord. Pete in the Army and Al in the Navy, and to reconnect with my brother Ted, who stayed back and kept things going back at the farm. The four of us were very close. We farmed together. We were the Etzel brothers farm. We farmed together until 1974, and we were busy. We raised strawberries, cherries, prunes, and grain, with green beans and sweet corn a bit later. We also had livestock, including sheep, cows, hogs, and horses. And I loved horses. Beautiful creatures, beautiful. I even have my own saddle here. I even has my name down there by the stirrups. You can take a closer look later, but I loved horses. I took horses everywhere. I went elk hunting on horseback. I even went to confirmation class on horseback with Elmer Etzel way back when I shoot. But I will say I did not ride a horse here today. I rode a horse of a more angelic type, you would say. But I love horses. In 1975, my brothers and I decided to farm independently, although we always tried to help each other out whenever one needed a helping hand. I was involved in managing my farm until I was 87 years old. Besides farming, we like to play music as a family. I don't know about you, but what did you all think about that song as I was walking in? I don't know if it was familiar to anybody. A little Snow Deer for you, just to remind you of that song. It was a popular song that we would start social occasions with. And that was me playing along with the Etzel band, me and my siblings. It wasn't uncommon for my siblings and I to break out instruments at weddings and get-togethers, Christmas parties and that sort of thing. At one point we even cut a record. This picture here is us all dolled up. I cleaned up pretty nice if you ask me. But we even cut a record. As you look closer at the pictures, one person you may not see in all the music pictures is my older sister Louise, and there's a reason for that. You have to understand how we learned the basics of music. So growing up in that farmhouse, lots of little rascals running around, making a lot of noise, especially around dinner time. Papa was still in the fields, and there was that window of time. We're very hungry. We're making a lot of noise. Papa's not back yet. What's Mama going to do to keep us busy? She would teach us how to play music with pots and pans and spoons. The thing was, Louise, being on the older side of things, she was part of keeping us in check. And so she didn't participate in learning music as much. She was probably getting first-class education babysitting, that's for sure. But from those early starts of pots and pans and spoons, we learned how to play music by ear. And we would play instruments all the way up into our 70s. It wasn't uncommon for us just to show up with our instruments and just kind of make eye contact, and we'd break them out. It was a good time. I'm glad you kept with me this long. I did keep the best story for last, which I'll build up to a little bit. I mentioned I lived on Church Street, Blue House over there, and it was a blessing to live there and to be such a active parishioner here at St. Boniface. I was a longtime parishioner here. I was very active in the Knights of Columbus, St. Anthony Council 2439, a lot of time at Anthony Hall, which is a great connection. Thank you, Father Anthony, earlier for sharing your story and that connection with the Knights here locally. But it was during this time of faith in this area where I learned how to pray daily, especially the rosary, to our Mother Mary. In fact, no matter how tired I was from the fields or whatever I was doing, I would always find time to pray. And I would often pray in one of my favorite spots, which was in the kitchen. At the cutting board, I would kneel and I would fold my hands. And I would pray there so much, some say today, that you can kind of see an indent where I pray so much. I don't know about that. The nice thing is you can maybe ask my great-nephew Miles. He actually lives there now with his young family. He actually just had a boy a couple months ago, just shy a couple months, and named him Maximo Vincent Dodge. And come to think of it, I have a niece who named her son Dawson Vincent Dodge, and then I have another great-nephew who named his son Vincent as well, which is a very special thing right now in this moment. You might say, the kids would say I'm trending, I think is the term. So you must have done something right. About family, staying close to family is very important. It's important because family and faith, they have a very close tie to one another. And I'm very grateful for the deposit of faith that my family deposited in me and nurtured. My family nurtured that early on, and I'm very humbled to see God act in very unique ways, whether it be seeing my father pass that constellation of all the visions I had seen. But really the story that took the cake was one that led to the construction and the creation of the shrine just a stone's throw behind me. And I want to tell you basically the origin story behind that through a letter that I wrote. The following occurred on the evening of December 28, 1979, at my home off Church Street, and are my own words. I had just gotten up from saying my evening prayers and my rosary when I was enclosed in a cloud that formed a wall around me, and I was not able to see anything in the house. There was a fragrance like benediction service. I felt like somebody was there, but I could not see anybody or hear anything. I felt a breath like somebody was breathing on me, and I was in a different world. I don't know how long this lasted. All at once I could see the inside of my house again, but I could not move for a while. Finally, I knelt down again, asking God for help and thanking Him that I was still alive. After a few prayers, I went to bed wondering what it all meant and where I had been. I was in bed on my back with my head facing the door and the pictures of Jesus and Mary on the wall. My bed light was still on when a cloud came right through the almost closed door and raised higher as it moved to the foot of my bed. My head and eyes moved with the cloud, and Jesus and Mary appeared, looking at me. Jesus on the left, Mary on the right. They did not move their eyes. They looked alive and real and did not blink. All features of the head, arms, and chest looked like a real person. I looked at Mary's eyes, and she looked in my eyes. She had a big, loving heart that covered her chest and hands. The heart was a red color and looked alive. Then my eyes moved to Jesus, who was looking at me. His eyes looked real and loving. His big, loving heart that covered his chest and hands looked alive and real also. Then all at once they were gone. I did not see a cloud when they left. They had the same face as the pictures I have in the house that Papa and Mama had on Fern Ridge Farm. Still to this day, over all those years, the appearance of all the details are so real in my mind. Jesus and Mary controlled my emotions and actions that night. They kept me calm and guided me in my decisions through life. I spent many hours in church asking for their help. They answered my prayers through all these years to find the right people to reveal the vision to, and help me write this letter of my experience when you came to my house in a special vision. What I just read to you was kept very private during my life here on earth until I passed away in peace at Marion Estates right over there, maybe 3 stones throw, on July 21st, 2008. While alive, I only shared my vision with 2 people, Father Dernbach, who some of you may recall was a pastor here at St. Boniface, and my niece Carrie, who was very faithful in keeping the story protected. You see, I have a special relationship with my nephews and nieces. I was a bachelor my whole life, and so my nephews and nieces were like my kids. So it was very special to have my niece Carrie steward my vision, which led to the construction of the Sacred Heart Shrine. I brought some brochures up here. If you have a chance, you can walk by and take a look. It goes into more detail about the stained glass and a lot of story, a lot of detail that went into that, so definitely take a look. Ultimately, I wanted the shrine to be on church grounds and to give honor and glory to Jesus and Mary, and for it to bring all people back to Jesus. My intent was the shrine would be for people who can pray and ask for special graces and guidance. I thought this vision was best shared after my death, and so I'm here today. I thought this would be a pretty good setting to do that. And I really do hope that you spare a moment today or later, if you have anything on your mind, anything you're anxious about or worried, to stop by and pray. Talk to Jesus and Mary for whatever grace or guidance you may need. And if you need a prayer partner, now you know where to find me. I do hope to see you later. Definitely, it's cold out there. If you need a warm meal, there's a nice chicken noodle meal downstairs. There's a silent auction. Definitely check those out. But overall, God bless, and thank you for coming this afternoon.
So we have completed our cycle of the 5 historic figures that we were celebrating today. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we will begin again. So